7 o'clock on the East Coast. It is 4 o'clock on the West Coast. It is the 13th of August in the year of our Lord 2023. Season 14, episode 4. 639 times you have been welcomed to the Clubhouse podcast. I almost said the name of the other show. Live on multiple platforms. We're so glad that you have joined us this evening as August in Texas still undefeated in triple-digit days. Welcome. My name is Rob. I am the executive producer of the Clubhouse podcast. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of traveling this week, but I'll be back before the next episode. Don out on assignment in another continent for the next couple of weeks. We won't say which one, but it's not Antarctica. That way, I got it right, is my co-host and a man who has wonderful cats in his house. One of them likes to chew on my shoelaces. He is Alex.
I was wondering, was I supposed to stand up so that you could riff on the shirt? Because I do have a very special shirt for a very particular reason.
Do it.
We talked about it yesterday. But it's good because we're getting towards my favorite time of the year, and there's a particular reason.
Yes, sir.
For the Gotham City Rogues shirt.
It's almost time.
Oh, we're so close. And we actually had some legitimate football this past weekend.
We will talk about preseason football.
All of it.
Even though you know how I feel about preseason football. But it's football, and I don't care. I was actually, and coming up at the end of the show in Tech Talk, we're going to talk about a very big decision I have made. Part of that experiment happened today, and it had to do with watching preseason football.
Absolutely. But it is hot. It is really hot. We need to get past this. Football starts. The weather starts cooling down. I can actually step outside.
I want to do one quick college football note that makes zero sense.
There's a lot of those lately.
As we know, the team carousel is in overdrive right now. Apparently, what is left of the Pac-12 is looking to make a deal with Apple TV that would pay each participating school $20 million a year.
Oh.
It's the SEC, it's the Big Ten, and then it's everybody else. Let's not fool ourselves. Oh, but honey, did you feed the boys? Okay, my wife is getting ready to go.
Actually, I would love to do an addendum to that because the Big Ten significantly behind the SEC.
But still, if there is a pecking order in college football, that is it. Now, Apple
would argue that the SEC lately.
Do I?
I would say it's SEC, ACC, then Big Ten, and everybody else.
Don't hold your breath because two of your powerhouses in the ACC want out.
That's also fair, but
Florida State come to the dark side.
So many mistakes of going to different places. But my favorite response to this one was somebody putting up a highlight. I wish I could remember who it was. I feel terrible, but it was somebody from, or at least formerly ESPN, who put up a highlight of the Reggie Bush versus Vince Young USC Texas title game and said that just like we all remember it, my favorite SEC versus Big Ten game.
Come to the SEC, Florida State. Come to the dark side. We have cookies.
You better start talking cocky now because it's not going to be a good year for you.
No, I want them because it just makes us stronger. That's why
you want somebody that Florida will
Every team just makes us stronger.
I have seen a lot of predictions saying Vandy's going to finish ahead of the Gators this year, and it doesn't make sense.
This is the first year that my expectations for my number one college team and my number one pro team have reversed themselves. Because I make no bones about this show. I am saying it right now. I want Florida to be competitive. That's it. Like, we're in a rebuild decade. It's okay.
Rebuild decade.
But my Dolphins, my Dolphins, brother.
You know what? A teaser for next week when we go full deep dive. So in case anybody has questions, what is your expectation for the Dolphins?
I want 11 wins.
Because right now, I am struggling with whether or not they're second or third in that division.
You know why I want 11 wins and we will at least finish second, if not win the division? Because Hard Knocks ain't getting me into the rope-a-dope again. Every year, Hard Knocks makes me believe in whoever the team is, and then they just right into the ditch. Full throttle. They see the brick wall, and they break into a sprint.
And I love this because I literally told you about this last year. It is called the Hard Knocks bump. It is a known thing in handicapping and fantasy.
I have to figure
it's the exposure being positive because, as you and I have said many, many years on social media, we know that things are getting better because we hear Hard Knocks, we hear Liev Schreiber, and we get excited because that's the real start of football.
Hold on 1 second. We have a guest joining us. He can't find the link, so I'm having to type the link manually in a text message.
Oh, that's rough.
This is riveting radio, by the way.
Oh, it's TV.
Well, it's both. It's both.
That's also fair. But man, I can't wait to go into the deep dive next week on the NFL. You know, it's my favorite show of the year.
And by the way, after last year's attempt at this, we are dedicating next week's entire show. There will be nothing else talked about than our predictions for the NFL, and Don's just going to have to write his down later because we're not waiting for him, number one. Number two, it would take a whole nother show.
Yeah.
So next week on this show, we will give you our official over-under predictions for every team in the NFL. Because life is about to begin, people. It's almost time. Oh, it's almost time.
And if you've never been with us before, let's just say part of it will be coming from a certain city in the West. And we will have official numbers to work with.
That's right.
Do you get more excited for that episode or the State Fair episode?
Those might be back-to-back weeks.
That's why I'm asking.
Well, here's the problem. We might have to do a special edition for that.
We've said that about both.
No, just because the 27th we may not have a show, and that's when they're officially announcing what the fair foods will be. So we may have to do like a midweek. Let's talk
midweek update.
Yeah, we may have to. Stay by the channel.
We will keep you posted. We won't just do it on a whim.
Two of my favorite shows we do are those. Our NFL predictions, and when we talk about this year's State Fair of Texas State Foods. And during the State Fair of Texas, the Madre is supposed to be in town.
Oh, really?
Their rumors are strong right now. They celebrate 30 years this year. The lovely and talented Mrs. Irvin and I celebrate. Theirs is 25. Ours is 20. So there may be a visit. I'm very excited. Oh, I can see our guest is joining us right now. Let's add him to the stream. Let's get him. Alex, do we have lower thirds available?
I think we have him in there. I'm wondering what's going on here.
Yeah, because ours aren't showing. Joining us now. It has been months in the making, if not years. He is one of my dear friends. He is the proprietor of Dallas Comic Show and the man. No, our lower thirds, not the banners.
I understand that. Don't respond to this.
Okay. And the proprietor also of the longest running movie review site in Dallas, Fort Worth, bigfanboy.com. Mark Walters is here. Welcome, brother. Oh, I can't hear you.
I'm just kidding.
See,
I was messing with you.
Because every time we put Mark on a meeting, he always has audio problems. Every time. Hey, brother, how are you?
I'm good, man. How's it going? I apologize. I'm a few minutes late. I know you sent me a link to this, but I couldn't find it. I don't know where it went. So I appreciate you resending that link.
When you watch back, you'll see I'm manually typing the whole thing in. Because it's got the gobbledygook after this, but we're using a new platform, and we fully endorse StreamYard. This is an amazing platform. It does.
I've used StreamYard many times. I love StreamYard. I think it's great.
So, yeah, we've been using it now for about a month, and I've loved what I've seen so far. Right now, we're right in the middle of handling sports. We talked about next week we're going to do our entire NFL show, and then the following week, if you're available, we'll probably be in the middle of the week because we won't have a show on the 27th. We are going to have our deep dive into the official new foods at the State Fair of Texas.
Oh, okay, great.
So we do that every year.
If I start roboting or something, let me know, because occasionally I will have to switch over to a different Wi-Fi, but it looks like I look okay right now, right?
Everything was great.
Okay, good. All right.
Let's get into NASCAR talk. Today was Indianapolis, the Indianapolis Verizon 200 at the Brickyard. This was actually a road course, and I love road courses because I don't like just them going around and around and around and around. I like when they do the road courses because there's hairpin turns and all the things. So here's your top 10 finishers. We have a new number. We have a new, never before mentioned name on the show, Alex, coming in 10th. Starting in 8th, finishing in 10th. And the number looks like 91 Chevrolet, Shane Van Gisbergen.
Easy for you to say.
I wonder if that's Doc's new favorite driver.
I almost want to just say Gesundheit.
I know. It was very strange. Christopher Ring My Bell starts in 7th, winds up in 9th in the number 20 Toyota. Starting in 6th, winding up in 8th in the number 5 Chevrolet, Kyle Larson, attorney-at-law. Martin Truex Jr. starts in 12th, winds up in 7th in the number 19 Toyota. Chase Briscoe County Jr. I knew that one was going to get Mark because he knows that reference.
Fred Garvin, male prostitute.
Starting at 13, winds up in 6th in the number 14 Ford. The Archer, Alex Bowman, goes from 9th to 5th.
Oh, because his last name is Bowman. I get it.
We Chris Berman the crap out of this segment.
Welcome to the show, Mark.
Daniel Suarez, You Kill My Father, Prepare to Die, starts in the pole but winds up in 3rd. Chase Elliott, the new sheriff in town, starts in 3rd, winds up in 2nd. And Alex, I've been waiting. Alex knows we were in pre-show. I said I cannot wait to tell you who.
But I don't know what it is.
Because it's one of your favorites.
Excuse me?
One of your favorites that I do on this show won the race today.
I know where this is going.
Winning the race in the number 34 Ford.
Brace yourself, Mark.
Michael McDowell won the race today.
What? Who?
Michael McDowell, but I do
Michael McDowell.
Yeah.
Because it sounds sort of like Michael McDonald. That's why you did that?
That's why I did that once and it just stuck.
I will accept that joke.
Let's see here. Oh, what happened? I reversed the tabs. That's what happened. Let's get you to your points updates. If the playoffs started today, your 2 odd men out would be the aforementioned Michael McDowell and Daniel Suarez, because
wouldn't it be more appropriate to make a Malcolm McDowell joke on that guy?
But not as funny.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm already the Alex on the show.
My Malcolm McDowell not nearly as good as my Michael McDonald.
What's the line he has in Star Trek Generations? Time is the fire in which we burn, Captain.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Right now in 16th, it is Ty, yes, the son of Joe Gibbs. He is what's going on here? No, season points. That's what I want. Okay. Oh, so let's reset.
We are a professional show.
So this is a well-oiled machine I'm joining here.
Well, because I'm in the right. I clicked the wrong thing. All right. So let's reset. Ty Gibbs currently is about 70 points behind Ricky Stenhouse Jr. because, as we know, there should be at least one junior in NASCAR at all times. Stenhouse is 11 points back on Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is about 68 points behind Tyler, the Chronicles of Riddick. Riddick is 27 back on Logano. Logano 3 back on Buescher. Chris Buescher is 3 back on the Stone. Ryan,
I gotta go.
Currently, Mark's like, I should have showed up 10 minutes later.
Blaney 7 back on Kyle Busch. Busch is 2 back on Keselowski. Keselowski 5 back on Ross. Don't you dare call me Jessica Chastain. He is 16 back on Kyle Larson. Who is 1 back on Harvick. Harvick is now 14 back on Christopher Ring My Bell. Bell is 24 back on the poet William Byron. Byron is 9 back on Hamlin. Hamlin now 57 points back on Truex.
No Harry Hamlin joke in there somewhere?
Oh, yeah, that's usually moons over my Hamlin when we talk about him.
God.
Besides, we're trying to be for all the audience, not just the old audience, Mark.
Coming up next week, I do not understand the name of this race. It makes no sense.
When have we?
We are at Watkins Glen in New York, 90 laps, 220 and a half miles. Go bowling at the Glen, but we're racing at the Glen. Now, if they were doing both at the same time, then you have my attention.
It would be a little bit dangerous and risky, but people throwing bowling balls onto the track, now you have a sport straight out of Twisted Metal.
At this point.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you when I was a kid, I was actually an active bowler, and we were in the Orange Bowl parade on a float that was a bowling alley, and we would just take turns and go bowl a frame at a time. That's a true story in Miami.
Was that your audition for the halftime show?
Oh, no, that came much later.
Okay.
That was in elementary school at that point. All right. It's NFL preseason.
I like how Mark's just like, I'm going to go ahead and just do my taxes right now for next year.
Preseason. Let's go over it real quick.
I feel like what did you ever see the interview with Bill Hader when he talked about when he first joined Saturday Night Live, and at one point he flew on the private jet with Lorne Michaels, and he was real excited about being on a private jet, and he was like, hey, we're really going to be on the private jet, and all the other cast members like, yeah, you should go sit with Lorne when you're on that. and the whole time it was like Lorne Michaels, and that man's name was Chevy Chase, and Bill Hader's just like.
Really? He was on the show. I had no idea.
Every time he would wake up, and Dick Ebersol said, it's really your show.
Well, I'm sure you saw that news last week of who's probably going to be taking over that show after next season.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about that, actually.
I love me some Team.
I think that's a great idea.
Houston covers the spread. They were giving 3.5, but they win by 11 over New England. But again, preseason, remember, the wins don't count, but the injuries do. Yep. Seattle wins over Minnesota. Green Bay beats Cincinnati. Detroit over the Giants. Again, Alex, it's preseason. Because
I don't care. I always just go with whoever has the most rookies that they need to try out.
The Dolphins got beat by 16 by the Falcons, if that tells you anything. Pittsburgh beats Tampa Bay by 10. Washington football team by a safety. Denver loses to Arizona. Buffalo over Indy. But they should have won by more, in my opinion. Chicago, we watched a little bit of this game yesterday, you and I.
And my fury with this.
That's just that. New York blanks Carolina, JETS. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
Because they're on Hard Knocks, and it gets me every year, and I'm not buying it this year. Does that mean I'm not going to draft Aaron Rodgers? You don't know that.
Death taxes and Rob Irvin drafting Aaron Rodgers on his fantasy team.
How have I done the last 2 years? Pretty well, I think.
So Rob is like the Stephen Smith of this show.
Slava Medvedenko. Nobody does a Stephen A. Smith impersonation like Scott Van Pelt.
Yeah.
It is one of the funniest things you will ever see.
Now, but also to clarify, did you see the cool headline or blurb from the Pittsburgh-Tampa Bay game?
Go ahead.
Kurt Warner, in his last Super Bowl, wound up playing in Tampa Bay against the Steelers.
Okay.
His son was drafted by Tampa Bay and made his debut against the Steelers in Tampa Bay. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Jacksonville beats Dallas. Baltimore over Philly.
I'm sorry. We're going to be seeing like third string quarterback highlights of that play forever.
Chargers over the Rams. I still can't get used to the LA Rams. Saints beat Kansas City, and Vegas exploding in the second half, beating San Francisco 34-7.
What do you mean you can't get used to the LA Rams?
It's they've been there forever. It's just the Chargers being in LA now too messes with me. The Raiders I can deal with. The Raiders in Vegas, I can deal with that. The other two I can't wrap my brain around it. I don't know why. But here's an interesting bit on the Super Bowl, which is in Vegas this year. Mark, I don't know if you've seen, but usually during the playoffs, Nickelodeon will show a playoff game with their own feed where they'll like do virtual reality where they'll like dump slime on the field when there's a touchdown, and the announcers will cater to that demographic. They're doing it for the Super Bowl this year.
So they're going to dunk slime on the field for the Super Bowl?
It's augmented reality. But like when they pull up for the extra point, it's like SpongeBob's face. Mm-hmm. So, but they're actually going to do it for the Super Bowl this year, and I'm kind of interested. And it does.
I thought they had done that with the Super Bowl last year.
They did not. This is the first time ever.
Okay, I know they had some of it at least. Yeah, it might have been during the Pro Bowl where they were.
Then now that would make sense. But yeah, this is the first time ever.
That was the Pro Bowl games.
Correct. But this is the first ever alternate telecast for Super Bowl 58. I had to do the math on because I put the Roman numerals.
As we know, weird things happen when Nickelodeon gets a hold of it because that MVP was Mitch Trubisky.
I feel like all this is one step away from an AI Super Bowl, and I'm scared of that because I don't want that.
I'm only okay with that if all the players look like the magnetic football games from when we were kids. That's the only way I'm okay with this.
It'll be some made up teams like the Poughkeepsie Pugs versus the Duluth Diamondbacks or something like that.
That sounds like the Puppy Bowl.
Well, yeah, it could. You know what? Maybe that was the birth of the AI Super Bowl. Is like the Puppy Bowl somehow morphs into the AI Super Bowl.
Now, Mark, get ready because we're going to play two of North America's favorite game shows here in just a moment.
No, I'm just kidding.
Because we're getting into Major League Baseball talk in your standings in the AL East. The Yankees, who lost to the Marlins, they're 12.5 back. And they've lost 2 in a row to the Marlins. Thank you very much. They're 2 back of Boston. Boston now 3 back of Toronto. Toronto now 5 back of Tampa Bay. Baltimore is now 2.5 games up. Now, just to catch Mark up.
Mm-hmm.
The AL East has been an insane division this year. So the first of 2 of America's favorite game shows that we will be playing is the following. And let me get my stuff ready here. Oh, it's already happening. What is the difference between the last place team in the AL East and the first place team in the AL Central? So what I want you to think about, Mark, is the team that leads the American League Central. How many wins differences do they have to the New York Yankees, who are in the last place of the AL East?
How many
wins?
How many wins? Wait a minute. How many wins do the Yankees have? They're not.
I'm not going to say something until after you make a guess.
So to give you some background on this one,
I'm going to say it's a 90-10 difference.
Well, so Mark, what we're looking at is what has been the weirdest thing is the last place team for the AL East has been better like 50% of the time than the entire Central Division. So it's how many games difference. Yeah. But so the game differential.
So a 10% of the wins would be a 6-game difference.
Okay. So yeah.
So in favor of the East or the Central?
I'd say in favor of the East.
All right, Alex?
I agree that it is the East, but I think because the Yankees have not been doing as great, but the Central has been doing even worse, I think it's closer to 3 games.
In the AL Central, the Kansas City Royals are in last place. They're 23.5 back. They've got to be getting close to mathematical elimination because they're 9 games back of the White Sox. The White Sox are now 6.5 back on Detroit. Detroit's now 3.5 back on Cleveland. Cleveland now 4.5 back on Minnesota, who leads the AL Central. The New York Yankees are 60-58 right now. They are the last place team in the AL East. The Minnesota Twins are 62-58. So if I think for the first time since we've played this game, Minnesota has actually been ahead of the Yankees.
Yes, that is the first.
But that would tie. Actually, no, that would not. They would still lose the tiebreak to Boston in that league right now. Because Boston,
there wouldn't
in 56, Minnesota 62-58.
Right, but is Boston in first place?
No, Boston's ahead of the Yankees.
Then, but my point being is that the Boston would lose the tiebreaker because Minnesota's leading a division.
Right. But what I'm saying, just mathematically, if you put them
mathematically, yes.
the best Minnesota could do is 4th place. The best. In the AL West, the Oakland A's are 37 games back. Put a pin in that.
That's all.
They are 25 and a half back on Law. Law is 5.5 back on Seattle. Seattle 3.5 back on Houston. Houston. The Rangers still in first place in the division by 2.5 games. But get ready. In the NL West, I'm looking. Okay. The Colorado Rockies are terrible. They're 26.5 back. They are 11 games back of San Diego. San Diego is 3 back of Arizona. As Arizona 4 back on San Francisco. And the Dodgers are now up 8.5 games after an 8-game win streak. In the NL Central, the Cardinals are 12.5 back. Pittsburgh, where I will be this week, and they will be on the road at Citi Field. They're a game and a half back on the Pirates. The Pirates now 7 back on Cincinnati. Cincinnati's starting to skate a little bit. They're a half game back on the Cubs. The Cubs now 3.5 back on Milwaukee. And in the only division that matters, the NL East.
Yep, go for it.
You're tied with Washington? Is that
for
your
now?
Running?
No.
But you're both 9 back on the Marlins. The Marlins are 3 back on Philly. Philly's now 11.5 back on Atlanta. Oh,
to clarify, that's not a silver lining. That is a brown streak in the underwear.
I will still support your team. Because as we said in pre-show, I'd said nothing about that doubleheader yesterday.
Nope. You absolutely did not rub it in my face.
So now let's play North America's other favorite game show. And the one that
the original
play. Because it's still the same team.
And has been all year.
What is the run differential for the Oakland Athletics? So, Mark, what I am asking you, sir, the number of runs the A's have scored versus given up. The run differential. Give me a number.
I'm terrible at this.
So are we. That's the point.
I don't know. 7.
Okay. Alex?
So I want to say last time we did it, it was like 260.
Oh, we're talking. Wait. Say your question again.
How many runs that Oakland has scored?
Oh, okay.
Versus how many they've given up.
Well, now I want to just copy Alex's answer. I'll say 200.
Okay, Alex?
Russ is chiming in with minus 300 in the comments. I will say that I like the young players that Oakland is given some shot to, so I don't think it's too much worse. I'll say 265, minus 265.
All right.
And I say minus 200.
Do you remember who had the best run differential the last time we played this game in all of Major League Baseball?
Was it Texas?
It was. Texas, not now currently. They're at plus 182. Atlanta's at plus 194. The Oakland Athletics are 33 and 85 right now on a 3-game losing streak. That is a
no. Do not gloss over the fact that is like 50 games under 500.
That's a 280 winning percentage. They're 18 and 41 at home. They're 15 and 44 away.
May I borrow your line?
But they have a great personality.
They have only won 28% more games than us.
That is true. The run differential, Russ is over. The run differential for the Oakland Athletics. Remember, Atlanta's at a plus 194. Oakland is at a minus 283. Run differential. They have scored 413 runs over 111 games ish. They have given up 696 runs this year.
Can we just acknowledge that they have roughly the same amount of games under 500 as they have left in the season?
Oh, that's amazing. What a meltdown. All right, let's get into TV talk. Mark, I don't know if you saw the post I put up last night. IGN reported yesterday, next year, we are getting a series called House of Lee. It is a Bruce Lee anime. I am here for it, and I want to go to there.
You know, just when you say the words Bruce Lee anime, I mean, immediately I start conjuring up these really awesome ideas. So yeah, I could see being on board with something like that.
It's coming next year.
Cool.
So I'm very excited. It's two of my favorite things. It's anime and it's Bruce Lee. Like,
okay, so now here's my question: is this being done with the permission or at least the assistance of the Bruce Lee family?
I have not gotten all the details yet because IGN didn't put up a story. They just made the announcement yesterday. But I will be following this closely. And the picture they put up, let me see if I can bring it up so you guys can see it.
Yeah, the one you shared that was literally the exact one that I think 90% of people who like Bruce Lee or know Bruce Lee would immediately think of, but in anime form. So it was spot on as far as any kind of advertisement that you get from just a news report. But
yeah, I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you can see it. This is the image. Oh, nope, not slides. I want to share my screen. No, that one. This is the image that hit yesterday, probably about dinner time. Thank you, Alex, for blowing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
It looks great, and it's that pose, and it's the. Ugh.
Now, I would be very curious to see how much of it is actually that, and how much of it is that's just a precursor to what we're going to get.
Well, if you do a Google image search, it looks like there are some other screenshots that have been released that don't look fan made, that are very action oriented. I mean, I'm the guy that owns the Bruce Lee Criterion Collection box set. Like, this is how excited I am.
And I'm the guy who's still mad that there was only one.
And by the way, because we didn't have a show last week, and I think if it's not this week, it may already be out. They are doing a 50th anniversary 4K restoration of Enter the Dragon, and the box set looks awesome. Like there's posters in there. There's like two different Enter the Dragon looks like mouse pads, I think, in there. The box set looks incredible. I'm here for it. Let's see here. Let's get into Cartoon Network. That you're getting a Venture Brothers movie.
Man, they've been talking about that for years.
Yeah.
Is it finally happening?
It is called The Venture Brothers. Radiant is the blood of the baboon heart. It will hit first.
I'll put it in this context. The fact that we're getting stuff for another Metalocalypse movie gives me hope for Venture Brothers actually getting done.
But it's gonna be live Labor Day weekend.
I remember talking to Patrick Warburton about that like 15
I'm sorry, you dropped a name there.
Oh, let me pick that up.
Get used to it.
Oh, Patrick Warburton. But no, he was here for some movie at Dallas International Film Festival, and I remember, God, I want to say it was like 15 years ago. I remember talking to him about it back then, and like it just seems like that's one of those things that they've been talking about forever, and now we're finally getting it, I guess. So,
well, the overall arc of how that show has existed is a documentary on its own, I think.
Yeah,
it was there that it was gone. It was there that it was gone, and there was a movie, and then the movie was delayed. It's nuts. Disney Plus has announced that season 2 of I Am Groot will start September 6th with 5 new shorts.
I haven't even watched the season 1, but it looked like it was really cute.
It got a lot. I mean, I saw a lot of great.
I take that back. I watched the first episode.
Yeah, because they're only like 7 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
Long. So, in news of how is this possible, Fox announces MasterChef has been renewed for season 14.
Oh my god!
And this week will hit their 250th episode. Never watched
we were getting these. We knew we were going to start getting these the moment the strike happened, that all the reality was going to get renewed.
And when we get to Tech Talk, we're going to go into that a little bit more with Mark, because, as I said at the top of the show, Mark is a guy that runs shows. And
better than pretty much everyone, in my opinion.
That. one of the things that he and I are going to talk about,
fellas,
you're on the medal stand. Don't even. But one of the things he and I have been talking about a lot lately, because I do a lot of work with him at these shows, is how we're going to be handling things. And we're going to talk about that when we get to Tech Talk. HGTV says Good Bones will end with season 5. This is a mother-daughter remodeling show. My wife does enjoy.
Oh, I know which one you're referring to, and don't care.
So there is that. And Max, just call it HBO. They are, and Alex and I talked about this the other day. They're actually flirting with a live sports tier that could start with the MLB playoffs on October 3rd. That's how quick they're talking about getting this thing up and running.
Yeah, and we know that crossing over from the other show, there is a very large library expecting to appear on it for, let's call it scripted sports.
Yes. Hey, AT&T, I get Max free, so that would help if you would just include that in the thing. That would be great. The only thing that's going to hit DVD and Blu-ray this week from a TV standpoint is season 1 of Lincoln Lawyer. My wife is very into this show.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but I hear it's infinitely better than you would ever expect it to be.
She has burned all the way through Suits, which apparently has now amassed over 2 billion viewing hours on Netflix.
Wow.
And somewhere
I blame English summers.
Well, and plus somewhere USA's going, where were you idiots when we were showing it?
Didn't I just saw an article where they were talking about bringing Suits back.
Well, the 9th season is actually on Peacock. It is not on Netflix.
Okay.
And that's the only season without the Meghan Markle, to my knowledge.
Right, but Suits has been over with for a while, right?
Yeah. There was talk of a spinoff for one of the characters, but it never.
Well, actually, what I read said they were thinking about like just bringing it back and just keeping it going type of thing.
They've said there is more story to tell. It's a law office. There's always going to be story to tell. Since we watched stuff like LA Law back in the day with Harry Hamlin. So music news, let's get into that just a little bit. Recently, I was hanging out with the in-laws, and we got on a diners, drive-ins, and dives kick. They were doing a marathon, and one of the things they showed was Guy Fieri and Sammy Hagar went to Mick Fleetwood's restaurant. He has a restaurant. Unfortunately,
which is now no more, sadly.
Yes. Yeah. Unfortunately, is in Maui. He has lost his restaurant. We talked on the other show about AEW's Fight for the Fallen this week. All of the proceeds from that show will be going to the Maui Food Bank. Any way that you can contribute to help things. Dwayne had a very nice post on his Instagram about it, telling people how they can help and giving love to all the first responders and everything. So help out if you can.
Just make sure the charity you're giving to is a legit charity, because unfortunately there are people out there trying to take advantage of, setting up fake charities and fake donation portals and whatnot. So just do a little research before you do what you do. What Rob mentioned is legit though.
What Taylor Swift keeps doing and keeps making me not hate her anymore. $55 million in bonuses that she gave to each and every member of the cast and crew of this Eras tour.
Now, let's clarify. It wasn't $55 million per person.
No,
it was
a total
overall.
of 50. Yeah. She gave $100,000 a piece to all of her truck drivers with a handwritten note thanking them for their work.
I'm sure she can well afford to do that.
Well, she's supposed to make over $1 billion on this thing. But like I said, it's been a long time since I hated on her, because when a friend of mine's daughter had a horrible, horrible accident, she got wind of it and actually showed up at the hospital, and nobody knew it was happening until she was there.
Wow, that's awesome.
So, don't hate on the T-Swizzle, as a friend of mine once referred to her.
You can hate on Rob saying T-Swizzle.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Did we ever get to the point of mentioning where she started that we learned the other?
No, we didn't actually have a show. But if you want to go ahead and do that, I'll let you take care of it.
So I didn't believe this until I saw actual evidence. Taylor Swift, before getting discovered, was a nanny or babysitter for Jeff and Karen Jarrett that crosses over with the other show.
Former WWE superstar, currently working for AEW, JEFFJARRET.
Ain't he great?
Yep. You've seen the rest. Now see him. But the Taylor Swift does lead. Apparently, these are still a thing. She leads the VMA nominations with 8, followed by the SZA with 6. How can you have VMAs on a channel that doesn't show videos? If Vivo wants to take that over, great. But I don't understand why the VMAs are still a thing.
This has been your Rob Yells at Cloud segment of the show.
I'm 50. I'm allowed to yell at kids to get off my lawn now. Yeah. So we talked a few weeks ago about this Cardi B incident.
Oh, yeah.
Where somebody threw a drink at her. She threw the microphone at the fan.
Hard.
That was not her microphone. That microphone belonged to the AV crew running the concert.
And that looked like very special microphone.
However, this is you want to talk about taking a negative and turning it into a positive. They auctioned the microphone off on eBay with the proceeds going to a local charity in Vegas and the Wounded Warrior Project.
Nice.
It fetched $100,000 in that auction.
Man, idiots make money nowadays.
But the money went to charity, so I'm not complaining.
I'm good with it. Yeah, that's the part I'm fine with.
On the other end of that spectrum, if you're fans of the Justin Bieber, his video for Baby with, was it the Ludacris, has now hit 3 billion views on the YouTube.
I'm not sure we have much crossover with that fandom. I'm just saying.
No. And next weekend, Metallica's in town.
Mm-hmm.
AMC theaters will be showing both nights.
Nice.
If you don't want to deal with the whip that is AT&T Stadium, you can see it at your and see it at your local AMC. And both nights will be completely different sets.
Yeah, they were actually posting their set lists from other venues where they did that double down, which was pretty cool.
Mark, you've now gone robotic on us, Mark. The thing you were talking about. I'll have to wait to see if he comes back.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm gonna jump out and jump back in.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
He's gonna get up and get back in for us. Let's see here. 2 new releases for music this week. One Hosier, who we know of, an album called Unreal Earth, and a new album called Carpe, Karpeh, from Cautious Clay.
So is that just like the Canadian version of Carp A?
I see what you did there.
Oh, no, I don't think I'm doing it. I think that's the intended.
Oh, I don't know. I just like the name of the band.
Yeah.
We're going to wait for Mark because we're about to get into his bread and butter, and I don't want him to miss that part of it.
Yeah, I really think that's like the Letterkenny version of the Carp A DM, yay.
Oh, I miss Letterkenny.
What's that?
I miss Letterkenny.
We'll get there.
Ready for the new season.
Well, it's usually around Christmas.
That's one of the things we're going to talk about in Tech Talk is about this decision I have made and some of the potential ramifications I'm going to have to deal with.
No, we did talk about that a little bit off air.
But I think
what the drawbacks are for comparison.
I think I got it right.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing. I think I got it right. Let's see here. While we're waiting for Mark to get back in, he's having to get to a different Wi-Fi in his house.
Mm-hmm.
So we will talk about this while we're waiting for him to get back because this will tie into what we're going to talk about. If you have ad-free Disney Plus, it's going up $3 a month on October 12th.
And in comparison to what some of the other ones are going up, $3 is negligible.
Am I no longer roboting?
You're perfect.
You're clean.
You're absolutely perfect now.
Okay, good.
All right, so let's get, and we were waiting for you because we're about to get into movie talk, and I know that's your bread and butter. So let's go to box office numbers from our friends at boxofficemojo.com, dropping out of the top 10 this week. Elemental drops from 10 to 12 this week. And that looks like the only thing dropping out of the top 10. Dropping from 9 to 10 this week is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Makes another $900,000. 7 weeks, $172.6 million.
What was the global on that?
Give me 1 second. I can get that for you. I will open that in a new tab because technology. International was just a little bit more than domestic, but total worldwide 370.7.
Okay.
It was 198.1 international. So it also lost 43% of its screens over last week. So Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 drops from 7 to 9 this week. $4.7 million. 5 weeks, $159.6 million. But worldwide, it's past $500 million.
Still less than I was expecting for that.
Release schedule killed them.
Yeah, it did.
Absolutely killed them. Sound of Freedom drops from 6 to 8 this week. It's made another $4.8 million. 6 weeks, $172.8 million. Talk to Me, which apparently now is getting a sequel that instead of T.O., it will be the number 2. But the directors, who are YouTubers, have claimed they've already shot a prequel.
Oh, really?
With one of the characters at the very beginning of the film. And they pretty much shot them all on iPhones. So, but it makes
I wonder how much X had an effect on that, since Pearl had already basically been shot before X's release.
Maybe.
Well, do you know anything about that?
I think the prequel that you're talking about, I think they shot that for like almost nothing. Like it's like
both of them are shot for almost nothing.
It's all shot on cell phones. And if you've seen the movie, the opening scene of the movie, I'll just say this: the way it's shot and everything, they easily could have shot that for nothing, because there's no stars, there is gore, but it's more implied than actually shown. And but I gotta say that movie, as far as horror movies go, is pretty. It's really something. Like it's definitely a kind of a breath of fresh air in a time when it seems like most horror movies are just reboots or retreads of something we've seen before. So,
and to clarify, you're referring to Talk to Me in this regard.
Yes, Talk to Me.
Okay.
Yes.
Don is the only person on the show that actually screened that. He liked it very, very much. Haunted Mansion drops from 5 to 6. It makes another $5.6 million. 3 weeks, $52.8 million.
Not good.
Yeah. Last Voyage of the Demeter, which Alex has screened, and you can see his review at www.theclubhousepodcast.com.
That is our website.
It made $6.5 million.
Yeah, that's about what I thought it would be.
Place.
Mark, did you get a chance to screen this?
I did not, but everything I've seen from it looks fantastic, and everybody I've talked to that saw it said that it was good, not great, but that the creature stuff was great.
Yeah.
So would you say that's a fair assessment, Alex?
Interestingly enough, I would agree with that. But the biggest thing I said was this isn't a horror movie. Okay. I don't consider it a horror movie. It's in the vein. I'm not going to go too far in depth because we still want to run people to the website. But it's more in the vein of the old school suspense of a monster movie.
Okay.
I highly recommend it. I just think that I said I don't think it's going to do well in theaters because I think people are going to feel bait and switched by the trailers.
Would you like to give everyone the parallel you made, because you're not the only one that's made that parallel, but you're the first person to say it to me, so I'm giving you credit for everybody copying you?
Which parallel
of this film to another film?
Wait, the inspiration or the way it was shot?
The inspiration.
The inspiration was a direct quote from the director. That wasn't from me.
Okay. Well,
the Alien in 1897 was from the director himself.
Russ wants us to know that there's another new release of music we missed. Vince Gill has a new album with Paul Franklin called Sweet Memories, the music of Ray Price and the Cherokee Cowboys.
That's a very wordy title.
Whatever he wants now.
Ray Price action. Good.
It's dropping from the silver medal to 4th place this week. Meg 2, The Trench, because there were so many unanswered questions from the Meg. Mike's giving you a shout out saying that you helped him convince the wife to go with him, saying it's not a horror movie. So Meg 2 makes $12.7 million, 2 weeks, $54 million in change. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem jumps from 4th place to the bronze medal this week. I'm bummed I missed both screenings of this, but I will see it. $15.75 million, 2 weeks, $72.8 million. And apparently this thing is doing very, very well worldwide as well. But let me get you the numbers on that before I get too far ahead of myself. It's made $21.9 million, and I don't think it's gotten full release internationally. So it's almost at that 100 million mark. In the silver medal this week, back from the bronze medal, because you can't stop this film, you can only hope to contain this film. Oppenheimer makes another $18.8 million. 4 weeks, $264.3 million. It is now the highest grossing film in the TCL Chinese theaters history.
Oh, wow.
So think about that history. And
I'd be curious to know where it ranks in IMAX sales. Because
have you seen that video that was released yesterday of the projectionists breaking it down?
No, I'll need to watch that.
So the way it used to be years ago is you would take it and then you break it down into the metal reels. Mm-hmm. That's not how they do it now. They had a piece of the film on this table, and they wrapped it around this little centerpiece, this little plastic centerpiece that's about the size, but the plastic centerpiece is it, and then they tape it down. There are 53 reels in that film that they boxed over 9 boxes to send back for the 70 millimeter. It's a cool looking video. It's like 30 seconds long. I stumbled on it last night.
We'll have to find it and put it up on the website, or at least on social.
And winning again, because another $33.7 million for Barbie. 4 weeks, $526.3 million. It has passed the $1 billion worldwide, and Greta Gerwig has now topped Jennifer Lee, who co-directed Frozen 2, for the highest grossing female director of all time domestically.
You know, and I also want to give you credit, Rob, for not making a Barbie world pun.
I won't do that, because even though I have not a chance to see this film, I respect it on that level. But I'm debating, do I wait for it here or do I go to a theater?
Interesting question.
Because the hype is not dying down.
No, well, why would it? What's gonna knock it off?
That's after losing 36% of the screens it had the week before.
But there's nothing to knock it off that's coming out. That's the hard part.
I mean, when I'm looking at the list this week, you got one shot, maybe two, but I don't think either one of those is strong enough.
Well, call it out. Which two were you looking at?
Well, we got to get to movie new releases first.
I was trying to give you a train.
Make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Mark, I want to give you the floor for this next thing, because you had some very, very nice things to say about a director we lost this past week, with William Friedkin dying at the age of 87. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to speak to that a little bit for us.
Yeah, well, I was very lucky to be able to get to know Bill a little bit. I first talked to him at the Dallas International Film Festival. He came in to accept the Star Award 10 years ago, 2013. I got to do what I thought was going to be like a 20 or 30-minute interview with him. It turned into over an hour. And we talked about basically every notable film of his career. And probably one of the funniest aspects of that interview was he keeps calling me Mike throughout the interview. And I actually, at one point, about halfway through, I had to stop and correct him. And we didn't realize it in the moment. We realized later why he did this. It wasn't that he forgot my name. It was that and I like to tell this story because I kind of think it speaks to the kind of person that Bill was. When he came in the room, I was the first person he met. We talked for a minute. Then he wanted to make it a point to go around the room and introduce himself and meet every single person in the room. The sound guy, the lighting guy, every single person that was there. He wanted to meet them, get to know them by name, whatever. The last person he met before we started our interview was our director, and his name was Mike. And so that was the name that was, fresh in his mind when we started. And that's why he kept calling me Mike throughout the interview. And so, and once I kind of had that realization of that, I was like, that's kind of cool in a way, because if he hadn't made it a point to go around and meet everybody, that wouldn't have happened. But he was just this super nice, I keep using the word humble, because every time anyone would praise him or try to say how great his films were, I don't think he ever perceived it that way. I think he perceived it as, he just wanted to tell a story. He just had, a certain vision in mind of what he wanted to do, and he executed it to the best of his ability. He never thought of himself as a legendary filmmaker. I even used that word with him, and he laughed about it. He just thought of himself as he's just a director. He's a storyteller. And so I always kind of admired that aspect of him, the fact that he was as humble as he was. And then sometime later, we saw each other again. I got to spend a little bit of time with him over the years in different scenarios. And I actually got to sit down and have a nice dinner with him. And during that dinner, we talked a lot about, films and making films today versus, back when he was doing it on a regular basis. And he said two things to me that I thought were really interesting. He said that he had no real desire to keep making movies now, because he said nowadays the only way to make movies the way you want to make them is you can't do it with a studio behind you, because they want to have control over everything. But if you don't have a studio behind you, no one will ever see your movie. But he also said that nowadays, more than ever, there are so many opportunities for aspiring filmmakers, to make movies and to have their voices be heard and to be able to tell their stories that never existed back in the 70s or the 80s. And he's absolutely right. I mean, look at these guys that made Talk to Me. That's a perfect example of these guys were YouTubers making short films, and now they've got a major motion picture release, which is making tons of money and is going to be the biggest horror movie of the year. That couldn't have happened 30, 40 years ago. So, and I think Bill saw that ahead of time. He saw that we were headed in that direction. It's funny, he kind of saw that streaming was going to take over. When we first talked, 10 years ago, he saw the future of streaming. He was already predicting that. So I think he was a very forward-thinking filmmaker. I think he was very humble. He was incredibly talented, and just one of the nicest guys I've ever met. I'm very honored and very pleased that I got a chance to spend a little bit of time with him throughout the years. And I really wish people could have gotten a chance to do the same and get to know him, other than just what they perceive or what they think they know of him as a director. Because I know that before I met him, I had a vision of him being this kind of larger than life, I don't know. I always thought of him as old Hollywood, and he really wasn't. He was more modern Hollywood. He was approaching an age where he was going to age out of the system a little bit faster than most. But yeah, he was just an amazing guy, and so talented and so without ego. And he was still making movies into his 80s. The last time I saw him, he was just sharp as a tack. He was an inspiration. That's really the only way I can define it.
Well, and people know, most people's brains go straight to The Exorcist, and it's he's so much more than that. You look at his IMDb, The French Connection, Sorcerer, very underrated in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Deal of the
Sorcerer was a film that got obliterated because it came out I think it was 2 weeks from when Star Wars came out, and people don't understand, unless they're as old as we are. and remember when Star Wars came out, they don't understand that Star Wars was such a huge cinematic phenomenon that it overshadowed everything that came out at that time. And I'll never forget a friend of mine, Ed Dennis, who now lives up in Washington, D.C. area. Back in those days, he used to work in a movie theater, and he would tell me stories about how he said, oh, yeah, Sorcerer came out, and it was like such a cool flick. And he said you could go into the theater at any given moment, and there was nobody in there because everybody was in theaters for Star Wars. And he said, so nobody saw that film when it came out. But it kind of developed this sort of like cult status years later. And one of the things that Bill, I think, was most proud of was that he got to personally oversee remastering that film for the Blu-ray release that they did, which is a phenomenal Blu-ray if you don't have it. And I know that was something that was really important to him because for many, many years that film was unavailable. And he made it a point to not only get it out there where everybody could, obtain it, but get it out there in a way that it really deserved. So one of my personal favorite films of his was To Live and Die in L.A.
And he also did the video for Wang Chung. He also directed the video for Laura Branigan's Self-Control, which is one of my more favorite songs. Deal of the Century, the Al Pacino underrated classic, Cruising.
Yep. Yeah, we talked a lot about that. That's a very interesting project. And again, one of those films that like you couldn't make that movie today. That movie only could have been made in the time in which it came out. And even then it got an X rating when it came out. So, but he was always willing to kind of push the envelope, of making movies and telling stories you'll never, this is never a more true expression for a director than to say that William Friedkin didn't care what the studios wanted, didn't care what the producers wanted. He was there to tell the story that he wanted to tell. And if you didn't like it, or if you had a problem with it, he didn't give a shit. I mean, oh God, can I say that on this? Can I cuss?
We can now.
Oh, sorry. Okay. But he didn't care. He didn't care. He was there to tell the story he wanted to tell. And if you didn't like it, tough, So.
Well, he did, and that was always that way because even if you look at some of the more recent, like Killer Joe.
Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for Killer Joe, Matthew McConaughey doesn't have an Oscar. I mean,
well, dude, he did Blue Chips.
Okay, that one I just would have loved to have heard the story on the difficulty of being like, yeah, we're gonna make a movie where there's like 3 actors and a bunch of college kids.
Yeah.
Well, and he is also in the HD TGM hallways because he did Jade.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Rules of Engagement also incredibly underrated in my opinion.
Agreed.
I forgot that he did 2 episodes of the original CSI. And the last film that he directed is completed. It's the Kane Mutiny Court Martial. I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that you should look up if you've never seen them. I am interested to see that last movie, which I think is coming out soon, right? It's coming out really soon.
September 3rd.
Yeah.
Kiefer Sutherland, Jason Clarke, Monica Raymond, Jake Lacey, Lance Reddick, Lewis Pullman. Like, I'm looking at this cast list. I'm like, this movie can't not be amazing.
His exorcism documentary about Father Amorth.
The Devil and Father Amorth. Yeah.
Yes, that is very much worth seeing. If you're even a casual fan of The Exorcist, you should see that movie.
Well, there was a very nice thing that came with the Pope's Exorcist because that's based on Father Amorth and talking about William Friedkin as well. That was very positive from Russell Crowe.
Both of the boys have now overtaken the studio. So,
and then the other film I want to mention. There's 2 films that I think are very underseen films that Friedkin did, and one is called Rampage with Michael Biehn, which I think Bill was particularly fond of. He liked that movie, and Bug with Michael Shannon, which is one of the first films that I can remember putting Michael Shannon in a lead role. Like I had never seen that guy before, at least not that I remembered. He had done small parts in other films. Like a lot of people forget Michael Shannon is in Groundhog Day as the WrestleMania fan. But if you weren't familiar with Michael Shannon as an actor, like before recent movies, Bug was one of the first films that really kind of puts him front and center. And that was, again, something that I talked to Friedkin about, when we were talking about his various movies, about his ability to see in an actor, like, this is the guy that should play this part, not because they're famous, not because they're, the hot thing of the moment or whatever. He picked people because he saw in them something that he thought could tell that story successfully. And at the time, Michael Shannon was nobody, and Friedkin was like, "This guy's got something, and he can pull off this role." We talked about when he cast Roy Scheider in The French Connection, and how when at the time Roy Scheider was doing a play where he was playing a cigar-smoking nun, and I was like, "And what made you think that guy was going to be perfect for The French Connection?" He says, I don't audition people. I don't do, screen tests. I talk to people and I get a sense of who they are, person to person. And that's how I decide who I want to play roles and whatnot. And when you think about that and you look at some of his films throughout the years, because whether the film itself was considered to be good or not, the roles, the actors that play those roles were always very inspired and I thought, very interesting. One last movie I want to mention that a lot of people haven't seen, and I really think people should see this. He did an amazing movie called The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones and Benicio del Toro. And it's some of the most intense and violent fights I've ever seen in a movie, because it's a lot of knife fighting. It kind of implements like Philippine martial arts and stuff like that. It's really a cool flick. And I definitely hope people get a chance to see that. If you decide to go down the rabbit hole of William Friedkin movies, put that one high on your list. So
let's see here. Let's get into movie new releases this week. Blue Beetle hits theaters this week. That's one of the ones that I think could do enough business to at least crack the top 3, if not make it to 2 or 1. The other one, I think, just because the blitz has started for it, is Strays with Will Ferrell and Jamie Foxx as an abandoned dog teaming up with other strays to get revenge on his former owner. That's, I think, the Sofia Vergara, Isla Fisher, Randall Park, Harvey Guillen, Dennis Quaid, Will Forte, Josh Gad, Brett Gelman, Rob Riggle. This thing is chock full of voice acting.
Yeah, and advance word is it's really, really good. Speaking of Harvey Guillen, he's also in Blue Beetle. So Harvey Guillen has 2 movies coming out this week.
Harvey Guillen's Guillen is amazing.
We also have The Haunting of the Queen Mary this week. I think that pretty much tells what it is. But we have an Alice Eve sighting in this film.
Okay.
I haven't said her name in a very long time. Also this week, a movie that's being screened in the middle of the day. It's called Landscape with Invisible Hand. When an occupying alien species, bureaucratic rule, and advanced technology leaves most of Earth impoverished and unemployed, 2 teenagers hatch a risky plan to ensure their family's fortunes. This just looks weird. I've seen the trailer, and I'm like, I use this phrase a lot, but it's like the darkest timelines Truman Show. It's very odd. Very, very odd. And we have Wrong Reasons. Back on the Strip, which you look at the cast of this, it's not what I thought it was.
No.
Because you've got J.B. Smoove, Wesley Snipes, Tiffany Haddish, Kevin Hart, Colleen Camp, Faison Love, Bill Bellamy, Gary Owens in this. So basically, here's your plot line. A young man moves to Las Vegas to pursue his dream of being a magician, only to end up joining a male stripper group.
Somehow starring Kevin Hart. No.
Yeah. So you got that going for you, which is Hunter has just placed himself like right here. So my keyboard is now jammed into my stomach. Movies at home this week. Mark, did you ever get to see Nefarious with our friend Sean Patrick Flannery?
No, I know the film you're talking about. I haven't seen it yet, but
wow,
I know that it got a lot of good word of mouth, and I know that it I think it did pretty well in its limited run, right?
We got a screener link for it so I could watch it. It is a faith-based film, make no mistake about it. But Flannery does the best dual personality role I have seen since Primal Fear in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to say it. He plays a guy that's on death row in Oklahoma. for a murder, but he is claiming that he didn't do it, that he's been possessed by a demon. It is an outstanding film, and he works with a guy who's a psychiatrist who's the day of the execution, who is trying to determine, is he fit to be executed, or does this stay need to happen?
Who's the guy? Because I remember seeing the trailers, but I don't remember who the guy was.
Give me just a second. I can tell you, because it's somebody you know. Like, he's the guy that's the psychiatrist is that guy in that thing.
Yeah.
So Stephen Tobolowsky?
Jordan Belfi.
Okay.
Who you would know from, give me just 1 second. He was on Entourage for 14 episodes. He did a couple of episodes of Grey's Anatomy. I can't say anything Law and Order because that's what everybody does. He was on All Rise for an episode, but he's just that guy you see him, you're like, oh, I recognize that guy.
Okay.
For films he's done that would ring a bell. My wife recognized him from Grey's Anatomy. So he did a couple episodes of Castle.
By the way, I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say I think Blue Beetle is going to be a big hit.
You told me yesterday that you really enjoyed it. So,
well, it's the thing about Blue Beetle is, yes, it is a superhero movie, but it's more of a family superhero movie. It's a superhero movie that like it is very family oriented. It obviously has it's a love letter to Latino culture, but it's one of the few superhero movies I've seen where like his whole family like gets in on the adventure. And it kind of made me think of like a more mature Spy Kids. And the audience really seemed to have fun with it. So I think that movie, I think it's going to get really good word of mouth. And I think for that reason, it's probably going to be a big hit. I could be wrong, but I mean, I think a lot of people were looking at that movie as, well, the DC cinematic universe is dead because James Gunn's rebooting it. But now James Gunn is kind of getting behind this. Like he's saying this is going to be sort of like the start of the new DC, cinematic universe. And I could see that because the way that it plays, it does sort of play like a first chapter of a bigger thing. And so I think it's going to be a big hit. I think that'll be a movie to watch for.
Yeah, I was disappointed that this was overlapped with another screening this week, or I would be seeing it as well.
I'm telling you, it's going to get great word of mouth.
Also at home this week, you can see Wrong Reasons. This was actually written and directed by Josh Roush. You might know that name if you know the podcast Hollywood Babylon with Ralph Garman and Kevin Smith. Josh is the guy that produces that show. It's definitely not my kind of film because it's creepy. But when an ambiguously intentioned masked man kidnaps a drug-addicted punk singer, it triggers a police investigation as well as a media circus. So it's kind of an indictment on the cult of personality combined with a horror film.
Yeah, I saw that as well, and I dug it for the sense that it's obviously very low budget. In fact, Josh Roush even said, that there really wasn't much of a budget to speak of, but they made the most of what they had. But there's something really interesting about it. There's a lot of like parallels to the idea of punk rock and like, sort of like that sensibility of punk rock. And to me, the movie, it feels like you're watching punk rock on the screen. And I really kind of enjoyed it for that aspect of it. But it's an unusual film, and I can understand what you mean, Rob, about how it's not everybody's cup of tea. I don't know that I would recommend it to everybody, but I think for the right audience, I think it's a pretty cool flick. And I think people of the Kevin Smith crowd will enjoy it because I think a lot of those people are kind of into that scene anyway. So I dug it for what it was, and I think there's some really inspired choices in it. And I guess we should mention Kevin Smith is in it, but very briefly. Like
as is Ralph Garman.
Yeah, Ralph Garman actually has a pretty sizable role. He's basically the lead of the film, but Kevin Smith has kind of I guess you could call it an extended cameo because he's not just in like one scene; he's in multiple scenes. But he doesn't really. I think he has maybe 2 or 3 lines of dialogue at most. but and it's kind of spread throughout the movie, but he is in there, you know, and he's a producer on the film. So it kind of reminded me.
So it's kind of like his appearance in Die Hard.
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, like there's certainly similarities to that, but he plays a cameraman of all things. You know, but he's like there's a girl that's like the news reporter, and he's the cameraman for that girl, okay. And so he's kind of always there. He's like hanging around, but he doesn't really have like a big part in the movie, but he's there. But Rob, I know you would appreciate this because it sort of reminded me of, you remember the early days of Kevin Smith where like he would produce some of those small, low, like super low budget films like Drawing Flies and things like that. It sort of made me think of back to those days when
like Vulgar.
Yeah, exactly. Like something that was really kind of unique and interesting. And yeah, I dug it. I thought it was a cool flick. But you're right. It's definitely not for everybody, but I think the right crowd will enjoy it for what it was.
The Criterion Collection releases Dim Sum, A Little Bit of the Heart, and the Enter the Dragon 50th anniversary is this week. I want to show you what this thing looks like. It is a 4K restoration, which, wow, because not even the Criterion went 4K. This is what the box set looks like.
Whoa.
80. Your retail is about $80 for this. And that is that is a steel book inside the box set.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are those, what is that, like mini lobby cards? What
like
oh no, those are miniaturized movie posters, right?
Yeah, these two, and then it looks like we've got some production stills over here. Looks like we have the actual file, the dossier on Bruce Lee's character from the movie.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. These look like mouse pads here. It's 2 discs. And just probably some concept art, which one of the greatest movie posters of all time, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, it's true.
But yeah, that comes out this Tuesday as well. Let's get into, I want to get into Mark's piece of this before we go to the life-changing decision I made this week from Tech Talk. We know that the WGA has gotten a response from the studios. They are releasing this week their response to it. Part of the reason we're having Mark on today is to help promote Dallas Comic Show coming up the 26th and 27th of this month at the Vista in Louisville. A great guest lineup that I'm looking forward to because I get to help Mark with that show, as I've been doing for, 5 years now? Has it been that long?
I'm going to experiment with something real quick.
Okay.
Just keep holding it up, Mark.
I'm trying to.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Rex Smith, and there will be a viewing of The Pirates of Penzance. Jonathan Lipnicki, all grown up now. Larry Brantley, who you know from the voice of Wishbone. Burton Gilliam from Blazing Saddles. Hey, there's my brother Brent. Brent's going to be there. Ann Lockhart, Billy Blair, who's always a joy to talk to as well. A star-studded lineup. But we have to talk about how this strike has affected shows. I talked to a friend of the show. I just lost. I always forget his name, and I feel terrible.
Apparently, a very close friend of the show.
It's my brain locks up because Craig Price. There it is from Matinee Heroes. He's not watching. He's in Europe.
That's true.
He and I talked on the phone this past week because one of the questions I had for him, because he did work a show. He worked at Tampa Bay Comic-Con. And what I asked him was, like, how did you deal with panels? And basically his response was, you go to the celebrity and you ask them what they can and can't talk about, because they're going to understand the agreement of the strike better than we ever will. And that is a fair point, in my opinion. Mark, has there been any roadblocks you have faced that are strike related as you were putting Dallas Comic Show together? Because you do multiple shows per year. Somewhere between 4 and 5, depending. Always have a great time at your shows. But have you faced any roadblocks because of the strike?
Well, the only major one so far, the only very obvious one was one of the very first guests we announced for this show coming up was Phil Morris, who is most well known to people as Jackie Childs on Seinfeld, but he's been in a ton of movies and TV shows. And most recently, he was on Bosch. He's been on Doom Patrol. He's done a lot of film and TV stuff. His father, Garrett Morris, was not Garrett Morris. Why did I say that? Garrett Morris is on Saturday Night Live. Oh God, I forgot his father's name, but his father was on the original Mission Impossible TV series. And then Phil, some years later in the 1980s, was on the Reboot TV series, which I actually really like that Reboot series. But he was one of the first guests I announced, and he decided about a week and a half ago, I think, that he was not going to come because he was concerned about where things were with SAG-AFTRA, and he didn't want to do anything that would potentially get him in trouble or violate the rules or whatever. And I just said, listen, we completely understand. I get where you're coming from. Can we not call this a cancellation? Can we just call it a postponement and hopefully get you back here in November? Because I'm hoping that by then this will be settled and over with. Obviously, there's no way to know for sure, but you would think that would be enough time for them to come up with a solution. So losing Phil was probably the biggest thing that we've had to deal with so far. Everything else has been fairly smooth. They've sort of changed their rules back and forth a couple of times. And initially it sounded like the rules were going to be really, really strict. And now it seems like they've kind of laxed up a little bit to where the actors can still do a lot of what they usually do at conventions. The number one thing that my understanding is that they really cannot talk about upcoming work that is SAG-AFTRA related. So like if there's a movie or a TV series they have coming out and someone wants them to talk about it, they really can't talk about it.
What about past work?
Well, my understanding on past work is as long as they are not promoting it, like I think they can talk about it or answer questions about it. I just don't think they can do anything that would be considered promoting it.
So they can tell stories from the set, but not, hey, you can watch this right now on Netflix.
Right. I think. Yeah, that's kind of what I understand. You have to understand this, Rob, and you've probably seen it. But if you go to the SAG-AFTRA website, the rules that, like, even specifically under like convention signing appearances, those rules have changed so many times that like every time I go to look at it, it's different. And so what I tell you today may be different tomorrow. But I will say that the good part of it is that it seems like the rules have gotten less strict, not more strict. So from the moment when this all started, and I was looking at the initial rules that they had listed, I was thinking, like a lot of people, I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And now when I look at the rules, it's kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is manageable. Like there's still ways to get around this. I really think the number one thing that they're worried about is they just don't want people promoting upcoming SAG-AFTRA related work. As long as they avoid that, I think they'll be, for the most part, pretty much okay. The other side of it is that they don't have people looking over our shoulders. Like they don't have people. It's not like SAG-AFTRA is going to have somebody at the show, like saying, they're going to be writing it down, like, saying, I can't believe you did that. But we do need to be cognizant of it because nowadays everybody's got their cell phones out.
Yep.
So if somebody films them saying something in a Q&A, it could go viral within minutes. And so we just have to be aware of that. And it's what makes our jobs as moderators a little more difficult because we have to really be on the ball with, like, if someone in the audience asks a question and we know they can't address it, we have to be able to kind of shut that down, so that it doesn't become their responsibility. But I think it's navigate. It's easy. It's not easy to navigate, but it's something we can navigate. And so this will be a really interesting testing ground for it. I just hope that by the time November rolls around, I hope that we're far enough past this to where it's not so much of a concern. I've never done a convention where we've had to worry about this before. This is the first time in my 30 plus years of doing this stuff that it's actually been somewhat of a concern. So we'll see what happens.
And that November show is the weekend of November 18th and 19th, I believe.
Yes. So the upcoming show is August 26th, 27th, and then we've got November 18th and 19th. And that should be a really fun one too. We've got some fun stuff planned for that one. So,
and if you've never been to one of Mark's shows, Mark really does embrace the old school of shows. It's that indie show feel, which is what I love, because that's what I came up on in the late 90s and early aughts. And being able to work with Mark at these shows and, come out, because that's the support that he's got. Great guests that come out, and it's just a great time, a way to spend your weekend.
Yeah, free parking. It's cheap to get in. There's a lot to do and see in that area. Lots of good restaurants, and it's just a fun time. I mean, listen, we've all gone to shows where, by the time we got to the end of it, we were exhausted and we had no money left, and sometimes wondered if it was all even worth it. This is just a fun, kind of laid back, easy to navigate show. Fans always seem to love it. I constantly hear from people they're like, I had such a great time, and it was so much fun, and they were very thankful about it and whatnot, and they always want to come back, and that's great. I just want to do shows that were like the shows that I fell in love with when I started doing this over 30 years ago. And things have changed a lot over the years, so it's not always easy to do that kind of show anymore. But as long as I'm able to, I'll keep them going.
DallasComicShow.com is where you want to go, and you're going to see the flyers everywhere. The flyers actually on the social media right now too. So come hang out. I'll be there. You're going to see some familiar faces that have been on this show before. We'll be there. We're going to have a great time, as we always do. But I also want to talk a little bit because we're getting a little short on time. I made a choice this week. My frustration with Hulu is now officially over. I have canceled my Hulu Live TV subscription. I've kept the VOD subscription because my wife does like to watch a lot of shows on Hulu and do it ad free. By the way, that price is going up $7 in October for those of you that are doing the live TV. So you got that going for you, which was another reason I've now switched to YouTube TV.
Also, Disney Plus is about to go up too.
Another $3 a month. That's same day.
Yeah.
But I had the bundle with ESPN Plus. I don't do a lot with ESPN Plus. The only thing I've watched on ESPN Plus in the last 6 months was because my DVR didn't record the 2-part 30 for 30 American Gladiators documentary, which is one of my biggest problems with Hulu, is their DVR just decides not to record things from time to time, or records things that I don't care about, or I've told it I only want first run and it's putting in reruns. So, and sometimes, we talk about Monday Night Raw, where that's when I watch it skipping commercials, that's 2 hours it takes me to watch Raw. If I misses Raw and I have to go back and watch it on demand, it's only an hour and a half. So I'm losing a half an hour of show as well, which is dirty pool in my opinion. And you can't fast forward commercials on live TV unless you have Apple TV, because it worked for Alex and it didn't work for me because I have a Roku. And I tried it on my Xbox. It didn't work there either.
Rob, how long have you been using YouTube TV?
About a week now.
And do you like it?
You get a 3 free week trial. It's a little bit cheaper. I actually did pay for the sports package because I want NFL Red Zone, because as we know, YouTube is now the exclusive home of NFL Sunday Ticket. It's about $300 a year. I would rather watch Red Zone. I prefer it. What I've noticed, it is rated the best overall service of 2023 by CableTV.com. They have rated their favorite. If you watch a show on demand, because you have to be very careful when you watch your recordings, if you DVR something, it will ask you, see versions. Watch the version on your DVR, because if you watch it video on demand, you cannot skip the commercials, no matter what package you have. So I was watching some back episodes of The Wonder Years to get caught up for their season finale this week. I had to watch it with commercials. They're not that bad. It's 2.5 minutes. The tech's a little bit wonky on that front, but it gets there. The volume level on their ads is incredibly lower than the program itself in most cases. So be aware of that. the downturn to setting shows you want to watch. If it's a series, there's no way to tell YouTube TV to only get first run shows. It's going to hit those reruns as well. But your cloud DVR has unlimited storage. So it's not like you're going to lose programs if you don't watch them right away. The other thing is with Hulu, I've got the scanning fast forward. With Hulu TV, you cannot do that. It's only a 15-second skip at a time, which is not that big of a deal because I can still get through a commercial break in less than a minute. I also did the testing. One of the things that Alex and I talk about a lot, especially with Monday Night Raw, is when it airs live, if I wait an hour and then start Raw, I can usually finish it on time by skipping the commercials. On Hulu, we talked about this just a minute ago. You can't do that if you have a Roku. Alex can do it with his Apple TV, but by the skip feature, it goes over, though. You can't do that. With YouTube TV, you can do that. It does work. Now, when you're watching something on your DVR, be aware you're going to see the little yellow boxes where the breaks are. Don't worry about that. That's just for if you watch it VOD. I could still fast forward commercials over that, and they don't line up right anyway.
I thought YouTube TV was commercial free. Is it not commercial free?
If you watch VOD, it has commercials, but I'm talking about live recordings.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You're getting the commercials that the network gives you.
Got it.
One of the things I thought was weird, especially with Hulu, was when I watched AEW Collision, the opening audio when they play Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, I could barely hear. Did not have that problem with YouTube TV. So YouTube TV also decodes the 5.1 a little bit better than Hulu. I was also able to stop watching a program while it was recording, then come back to it later, and it did pick up where I left off. So it does do that as well. And it's a little bit cheaper than Hulu, not by much. But like today, I decided I caught up on all my recordings, and so I just queued up a little preseason football. The guide is very easy to navigate. Part of the problem with Hulu is you have all those categories on the left side, and it always defaults to recent. Then I have to go to the outside and hit all so I can see all my channels. Don't have that problem with YouTube TV. It's just a live guide, and you can go from there. I've been very impressed so far. I haven't found anything that's made me regret leaving Hulu. But like I said, you get a 3-week trial, and then we're getting like $20 off for the first 3 months, which is kind of nice. It's $62.99 a month for the first 3 months, and then it goes up to, I think, $72, $75, somewhere in there. And then the sports package is costing me another $10 a month. But it's still cheaper than any cable system you're going to find. The channel selection side by side with Hulu, because that was the thing for Hulu, is there was some channels that I like to watch that they didn't have back then. That has been fixed. The channel lineup is almost identical to Hulu Live TV. And it's a lot. Now, the thing we're dealing with right now is getting because you have multiple profiles, getting my wife's profile set up. But that's small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. It is a separate app from YouTube itself. So be aware of that. There's YouTube and there's YouTube TV. They're completely separate apps. But any questions that I've had have been because Google owns them, has been a very simple Google search. And it's telling me everything I need to know. I'm good with it so far. There's nothing that's made me growl or want to throw my remote or anything like that. There is a 4K package if you have a 4K TV that you can upgrade. I don't have a 4K TV in my living room, so I don't rightly care. There's only one 4K TV in this house, so I'm not going to pay an extra $15 a month for that right now. You do have the standard premium channels now. I will tell you, Hulu does not have the CW. YouTube TV does. That's how I was able to watch Reality of Wrestling, because that's on channel 33. But also has the My TV. There's 3 or 4 channels that I noticed that YouTube TV has that Hulu doesn't. I still can't get Access TV, which I think is weird, because you can get that in high definition, but that's a whole different issue for a whole nother time. But I have been impressed so far.
Cool. Yeah, I've been thinking about it.
I like it a lot. And if you're up this way, Mark, if you want a quick run through it, I can show it to you.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
I've very, very much enjoyed. We cannot thank you enough, sir, for hanging out with us tonight.
Yeah, dude, it was fun. I'm sorry I had a little technical difficulty.
Forever, but we finally got it done. You are welcome back anytime. You just let me know when. It's real easy to do anymore. It's a lot easier than it used to be. Jackson approves, and he's now walking across my desk as well. I've had more cat activity in this episode than we've had in a very long time. Let's do the plugs. Make sure you check out our website, the aforementioned www.theclubhousepodcast.com. Find out everything you need to know and some stuff you don't. You can follow me on all your social media if you would like. Everything is Yes, That Rob Urban. That is spelled ERVIN, usually without a cat tail in. Yeah, Mike says hello, Jackson. Jackson's like, whatever, dude. Alex, go.
I am Vexploit on all social media. If you'd like to help out the show, please go to ProWrestlingTees.com and search for the Cheap Popcast. We got a lot of different designs and a lot of different color options within those designs. If you have any suggestions or even are an artist that you'd like to submit a design, we will pay you for any shirt that sells. You can send that to me at alex@theclubhousepodcast.com.
Mark, do your plugs.
You can find me at Big Fanboy, usually on all social channels except for Instagram because some jerk took Big Fanboy on Instagram, so it's bigfanboy.com spelled out on Instagram. Or you can also look for on all social media channels at Dallas Comic Show. That's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
We are about 13 days away from the next show, so make sure you
2 weeks. Yeah, it's coming up.
Get your VIP tickets in the whole line, and remember, we are doing a showing of the Pirates of Penzance with Rex Smith. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it should be fun.
The official fact checker of this show is Don Ford. You can follow him on Twitter at Igbunu, IGBUNUUU. He is having a great time with Faith over in another continent right now. They'll be back in a few weeks. Charla Marshall is on Pinterest because we are morally obligated to say that. Our normal show every Sunday night, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific, is your one-stop shop for all things sports, entertainment, and pop culture. So until next time, for Alex, for Mark, for Don, for the Empire, I'm Rob. Clubhouse is closed. Brittany Palmer's on another vacation. So kind of what she does.